Chapter 17 Uncle. When they pulled into the fairgrounds, they could hear music and see the Ferris wheel turning in the sky. They could smell the dust of the racetrack where the sprinkling cart had moistened it, and they could smell hamburgers frying and see balloons aloft. They could hear sheep blatting in their pens. An enormous voice over the loudspeakers said, "Attention, attention! Will the owner of a Pontiac car license number H2439 please move your car away from the fireworks shed?" "Can I have some money?" asked Fern. "Can I too?" asked Avery. "I'm going to win a doll by spinning a wheel, and it will stop at the right number," said Fern. "I'm going to steer a jet plane and make it bump into another one." "Can I have a balloon?" asked Fern. "Can I have frozen custard and a cheeseburger and some raspberry soda pop?" asked Avery. He has quite an appetite, right? "You children be quiet till we get the pig unloaded," said Mrs. Arable. "Let's let the children go off by themselves," suggested Mr. Arable. "The fair only comes once a year." Mr. Arable gave Fern 2 quarters and 2 dimes. He gave Avery 5 dimes and 4 nickels. "Now run along," he said, "and remember the money has to last all day. Don't spend it all the first few minutes, and be back here at the truck at noontime so we can all have lunch together. And don't eat a lot of stuff that's going to make you sick to your stomachs." That doesn't sound like a lot of money, right? 2 quarters and a dime. How much is that? It's 70 cents, right? And Avery got 5 dimes and 4 nickels, so he got also 70 cents. He also got 70 cents. 70 cents was a lot during that time. Remember, this book was written in 1952 or published in 1952, so things didn't really cost much back then. "And if you go on those swings," said Mrs. Arable, "you hang on tight. You hang on very tight. Hear me? And don't get lost," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "And don't get dirty. And don't get overheated," said their mother. "Watch out for pickpockets," cautioned their father. "And don't cross the racetrack when the horses are coming," cried Mrs. Zuckerman. Sound like your parents? They do, huh? The children grabbed each other by the hand and danced off in the direction of the merry-go-round, toward the wonderful music and the wonderful adventure and the wonderful excitement, into the wonderful midway, where there would be no parents to guard them and guide them, and where they could be happy and free and do as they pleased. Mrs. Arable stood quietly and watched them go. Then she sighed. Then she blew her nose. What do you think? She feels kind of sad. Yeah, they're not babies anymore, aren't they? "Do you really think they'll be all right?" she asked. "Well, they've got to grow up sometime," said Mr. Arable. "Fair, a fair is a good place to start, I guess." "Oh, I know. It's very sad for moms to see their babies grow." While Wilbur was being unloaded and taken out of his crate and into his new pig pen, crowds gathered to watch. They stared at the Zine Zuckerman's famous pig. Wilbur stared back and tried to look extra good. He was pleased with his new home. The pen was grassy, and it was shaded from the sun by a shed roof. Charlotte, watching her chance, scrambled out of the crate and climbed a post to the underside of the roof. Nobody noticed her. Templeton, not wishing to come out in broad daylight, stayed quietly under the straw at the bottom of the crate. Mr. Zuckerman poured some skim milk into Wilbur's trough, pitched clean straw into his pen, and then he and Mrs. Zuckerman and the Arables walked away toward the cattle barn to look at purebred cows and to see the sights. Mr. Zuckerman particularly wanted to look at tractors. Mrs. Zuckerman wanted to see a deep freeze. Lurvy wandered off by himself, hoping to meet friends and have some fun on the midway. As soon as the people were gone, Charlotte spoke to Wilbur. "It's a good thing you can't see what I see," she said. "What do you see?" asked Wilbur. "There's a pig in the next pen, and he's enormous. I'm afraid he's much bigger than you are." "Maybe he's older than I am, and has had more time to grow," suggested Wilbur. Tears began to come to his eyes. "I'll drop down and have a closer look," Charlotte said. Then she crawled along a beam till she was directly over the next pen. She let herself down on a drag line until she hung in the air just in front of the big pig's snout. Now, a pen is just a place where they keep the pigs. It's not like an actual pen that you write with. May I have your name? She asked politely. The pig stared at her. No name, he said in a big, hearty voice. Just call me Uncle. Very well, Uncle, replied Charlotte. What is the date of your birth? Are you a spring pig? Sure, I'm a spring pig, replied Uncle. What do you think I was, a spring chicken? Ha 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 ha! That's a good one, eh, sister? Mildly funny, said Charlotte. I've heard funnier ones, though. Glad to have met you. Now I must be going. She ascended slowly and returned to Wilbur's pen. He claims he's a spring pig, reported Charlotte. And perhaps he is. One thing is certain. He has a most unattractive personality. He is too familiar, too noisy, and he cracks weak jokes. Also, he's not anywhere near as clean as you are, nor as pleasant. I took quite a dislike to him in our brief interview. He's going to be a hard pig to beat, though, Wilbur, on account of his size and weight. But with me helping you, it can be done. When are you going to spin a web? Asked Wilbur. This afternoon, late, if I'm not too tired, said Charlotte. The least thing tires me these days. I don't seem to have the energy I once had. My age, I guess. Wilbur looked at his friend. She looked rather swollen, and she seemed listless. I'm awfully sorry to hear that you're feeling poorly, Charlotte, he said. Perhaps if you spin a web and catch a couple of flies, you'll feel better. Perhaps, she said wearily, but I feel like the end of the long day. Clinging upside down to the ceiling, she settled down for a nap, leaving Wilbur very much worried. All morning people wandered past Wilbur's pen. Dozens and dozens of strangers stopped to stare at him and to admire his silky white coat, his curly tail, his kind and radiant expression. Then they moved on to the next pen where the bigger pig lay. Wilbur heard several people make favorable remarks about Uncle's great size. He couldn't help overhearing these remarks, and he couldn't help worrying. And now, with Charlotte not feeling well, he thought, oh dear. All morning Templeton slept quietly under the straw. The day grew fiercely hot. At noon the Zuckermans and the Arables returned to the pig pen. Then, a few minutes later, Fern and Avery showed up. Fern had a monkey doll in her arms and was eating Cracker Jack. Avery had a balloon tied to his ear and was chewing a candied apple. The children were hot and dirty. Isn't it hot? Said Mrs. Zuckerman. It's terribly hot, said Mrs. Arable, fanning herself with an advertisement of a deep freeze. One by one they climbed into the truck and opened lunch boxes. The sun beat down on everything. Nobody seemed hungry. When are the judges go on to decide about Wilbur? Asked Mrs. Zuckerman. Not till tomorrow, said Mr. Zuckerman. Lurvy appeared, carrying an Indian blanket that he had won. That's just what we need, said Avery. A blanket. Of course it is, replied Lurvy, and he spread the blanket across the sideboards of the truck so that it was like a little tent. The children sat in the shade under the blanket and felt better. After lunch, they stretched out and fell asleep. And that is the end of chapter 17. Let's take a look at those questions for chapter 17. So remember, on one side you're going to write what they saw, and on the other side you are going to draw what they saw. So, or what they saw, what they heard, smelled, and tasted. So let's go back to our chapter here, where they first arrive at the coder. Pretty cool, right? So they hear and see a lot of things. Of course, Fern and Avery are talking about all the things that they want to get. So they saw what they see. They saw the Ferris wheel for sure, right? They saw that Ferris wheel. And you can say any other thing that you like. They also saw, um, let's see, they could hear music, right? Playing from the Ferris wheel. So they could hear music. It says here that they could smell the dust of the racetrack where the sprinkling cart had moistened it, and they could smell hamburgers frying and see balloons aloft. Ooh, there's another thing. They also saw balloons. They also heard that loudspeaker. Remember that? When the guy was calling out a license plate number because it was too close to the fireworks shed. Oh, hamburgers. Oh, I love the smell of hamburgers, you guys. What's the smell that you really enjoy? I like the smell of fresh baked cookies. Yum. Oh, so let's see. They could also smell the racetrack, that dust and dirt, and the things that they tasted. Well, they didn't taste anything yet, but what were some things that they wanted to taste? Right, they wanted frozen custard, or actually, yeah, we can do that. Frozen custard was what Avery wanted to taste, a cheeseburger, and a raspberry soda or a raspberry pop. At the end of the chapter, Fern was eating Cracker Jacks, right? And Avery was eating a candied apple. So that was a lot just on that first page. But go ahead and copy down what you need to. Pause the video if you need that. I'm going to scoot this back up so you can see what was at the top, what they saw and what they heard. All right, right down at the bottom. Have you ever been to a fair? Me? Yes, I've been to so many fairs. And I think that you might have too. And if not, that's okay. You just circle no, no big deal. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to go to a fair soon once this whole coronavirus is over, right? Chapter 17. When Charlotte goes down and meets the new pig uncle, what did she say he was like? Right, that he's kind of boring, his jokes are weak, so he's dull. He's very large. Did she like him very much? No, not really, right? So she said he was kind of unpleasant. He had a unpleasant personality, and that he stated that he was a spring pig, even though he was super ginormous. So number 4, why did Charlotte and Wilbur worry about Uncle winning? Why do you think they're worrying about him winning? Right, because if Wilbur doesn't win, then what happens to Wilbur? He's going to get turned into bacon, right? So they're afraid that if Uncle wins, Wilbur will be killed. Good grief. What a sad ending, right? Take a moment if you need to pause the video and copy this in your packet. All right, and finally, who do you think will win the award? Color your choice. I'm not going to color my choice because I want to see what you guys do. You have to do the drawing anyway on the front side, so go ahead and finish the drawing. Color in which one you think is going to win, and I can't wait to see what your answer is tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 17 of Charlotte's Web. We'll see what happens next.